You've made appearances on E and other networks, is that right?
Yes, I'm lucky enough where I get calls quite frequently to be a legal expert on whether it's CNN, on E, or sort of the channels we have here.
Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, the list goes on of names, right? The case, I believe,
Love, Brother Love, yes.
Brother Love, that's right.
The new
Those are the
one,
recent
yes,
ones. And you
yes.
have a personal connection. Well, no, I'm not going to say that, but you've been to some of his parties, you said.
I have been to a white party. Yes, that is true.
Okay. The one case with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, this is a lawsuit that was settled one day after it was filed, saying, is this the next Jeffrey Epstein case? And what I mean by that is you've touched upon and spoken about the Wendy Williams conservatorship. Maybe you can give us a quick overview of what happened, maybe an update. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lawyer Interviews. I'm your host, Jeff Dillon. With us today, we have Tamar Arminak. Tamar, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
It's really great to have you. Today, we're going to learn a little bit about Tomar and then go over a very interesting case we're all talking about, the P. Diddy, Sean Combs civil litigation that's happening right now. But before we start there, Tomar, why don't you give us a little background about who you are and what you do?
Okay, great. Well, it's great to be on your show here. And again, I'm Tamar Arminak, and I have a boutique law firm here in Los Angeles called Arminak Law, and we do primarily civil litigation, although we've had some notable conservatorship cases and other types of matters. Currently, we are litigating the large class action lawsuit against Citibank for canceling Armenian bank accounts, violation of civil rights, and those types of things. But primarily, we are a civil litigation firm.
Great. And you're based in LA?
Based in LA, we have cases in Ventura County, of course, Los Angeles County and Orange County, surrounding areas. Yes.
And I guess what comes with the territory of being in LA is celebrity cases are either on your radar or maybe you work on them. Is that right?
Yes, being in LA and coming from the background that I have, I've been privileged and honored to work on several celebrity cases and know that world, the good, the bad, the ugly of that world pretty well over the last 19 years.
And you can speak on those cases too. I will brag for you. You are your TV credit. You've made appearances on E and other networks. Is that right?
Yes, I'm lucky enough where I get calls quite frequently to be a legal expert on whether it's CNN, on E, or sort of the channels we have here. Yes, it's exciting.
Great. Yeah. No, us lonely corporate lawyers in New York, we get to look at documents, but we don't see celebrities all the time.
Well, I haven't make the big bucks over there.
Someone is, yeah. Some of it trickles down, but yes,
yeah.
That is exactly right. Now, so it'd be great to talk about the Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, the list goes on of names, right? The case, I believe.
Brother Love, yes.
Brother Love, that's right. Those are the recent ones. And you have a personal connection. Well, no, I'm not going to say that, but you've been to some of his parties, you said.
I have been to a white party. Yes, that is true. I have been to a white party. Yes, when it was in LA. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't mean to.
All I'm going to say about that night.
Did not mean to tank you right off the bat. She parties regularly with P. Diddy. No, she went to one of his white parties where
just one white party. One was enough for me.
Got it. Yeah.
Lifetime there.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. But I know that it's complicated and there's so many different cases going on. We could probably spend too much time talking about all of them. But there are there's ongoing civil cases right now. There's potential criminal investigations happening, and then there's some past cases as well. Am I getting that's the general overview?
That's the lay of the land. That's right.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was that?
It's messy. It's messy.
It's messy. Yes. Good for the lawyer economy around him. Now, one thing, so maybe if we could talk just a second, give a quick overview. The one case with his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, This is a lawsuit that was settled one day after it was filed.
Yes. Yes. Very interesting. So, in my experience, these sort of lawsuits are not filed all of a sudden in the middle of the night and no one knows it's coming. So, I don't know exactly what happened, but it just in my experience with past cases, not this one, past similar cases, the camp must have known something was coming, and perhaps it was a back and forth. And someone said, "No, I'm not paying, or I'm not giving up, or I want more," something like that. And again, this is not a reflection of what happened in this particular case, but just my experience. To file a lawsuit like that, it didn't hide anything. It was so detailed, very long, very specific, and it named names essentially. And yes, it was a shock to read. It was a shock to read. And it was a shock with the day it was filed, and it was shock the next day when we heard all of a sudden it was settled and there will be no discovery on this case. No one will be deposed on this case. I have a sneaking suspicion there's some ironclad confidentiality agreements and liquidated damages attached to whatever occurred there. So yeah, it's very, very interesting case, and a very interesting tactic on both attorneys' sides. If what I think is true.
Yeah. So first of all, have you ever heard of this before?
All the time.
This case being filed and settled the next day?
Absolutely. It happens frequently. Usually the instinct, if you are a celebrity, and with my clients who are not only celebrities, but people of note, I should say, or people with resources, when a lawsuit like this is filed, their first instinct is, no, I have to fight it. I have to clear my name. I have to push forward. Now that they have filed it, I'm not going to let them extort me, essentially. And I have had conversations in my practice where I sit them down and I tell them what fighting a lawsuit like this looks like. And it looks very, very bad. Not only will the parties be deposed, that's Cassie and P. Diddy, but the people around them, psychiatrists, doctors, medical records come into play, witnesses. There may be, in cases like this, real documentary evidence. In fact, this is a theme that we have seemed to be reading a lot about in the lawsuits against P. Diddy. Videos, photos, documentary evidence. So that sort of stuff all comes out. And we all know from Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it's
how messy and public it is. Yeah.
And it lives forever.
Right. And so, but when this was filed and then when they settled, that these conversations didn't all happen just then. Is that right? Or like, was there a planned process? We're going to settle right after you file, or did they that quickly make the determination?
I think in cases similar to this that I have dealt with, the response back is, I'm not going to pay. So there's a demand letter or a draft complaint that's sent over, and it says, this is what we intend to file. Do you want to talk before we file it? And we're willing to enter into a confidentiality agreement if you pay us what we want. And it would indicate to me, the fact that it was filed, that the other camp said, no, we're not paying what we want. Perhaps we feel that we're being extorted or threatened, and we'll call your bluff. And sometimes it's a good decision and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have where the lawsuit is never filed because the plaintiff doesn't want to put themselves through that. The plaintiff is a notable person. For example, Cassie has her own career, and she might have thought twice about coming out and putting this stuff in writing and putting it out there about her. And you call their bluff, essentially, and it works. And sometimes it doesn't work.
I see. So good segue there, because the legal troubles didn't end when that happened. A lot of other cases came out, and probably the most notable recent one, very graphic case filed by Lil Rod.
Yeah, painful to read. Yeah.
Yeah, horrible stuff. Maybe could you tell us what are the main things that Little Rod's alleging?
Well, he's alleging that he was groomed and he was abused, and that he and others were filmed, and that there's an intimation that there's a whole library of films, inappropriate films like this, filmed without their consent, sexual assault, drugged. And in fact, he claimed that P. Diddy had a drug mule, I understand. He named a specific person who later has pled, we know has pled recently.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it was very complicated, just similar to Cassie's, very detailed, very, very detailed. Not the type of detail we usually see in regular lawsuits, but oftentimes attorneys feel when they're coming after someone powerful, or when they're
Mm-hmm.
filing something against someone famous, that the person on the other side has such a megaphone, essentially, so that the only chance they have is to really get out in front and put a lot of those facts out right away in front, and they do that, and perhaps that's what occurred here.
Yeah. Um, After this lawsuit was filed, I don't know the timeline in between,
Yes.
but eventually the FBI raids
Yes.
P. Diddy's house
Yes.
in a criminal investigation.
Yes.
How does one lawsuit lead into a criminal investigation from the government?
Well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, there's a lot we don't know about the FBI investigation and the raid. We do know that he has not been charged. He is not, P. Diddy has not been charged with anything
Mm-hmm.
as of yet. So that's important to note. But I don't necessarily think that the lawsuits, either the Cassie or the Little Rod, those lawsuits brought about the raid. Also, in my experience dealing with these types of cases, the FBI and the federal government, they do their job. They don't show up because they read a lawsuit the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they showed up, both on the tarmac where P. Diddy himself physically was, and I believe two of his homes, uh, full SWAT, they don't do that just because they read a lawsuit. They have more than this, is
Mm-hmm.
what I
So
would.
was this just a big coincidence?
It could have been a big coincidence, and there are times where events occur where the FBI or the government feels like we need to speed this up. Perhaps we intended to do a search, we intended to maybe bring a potential defendant in for questioning, but something's occurred. The Cassie lawsuit, the several other lawsuits that were hit
Mm-hmm.
right before the New York statute issue, based on sexual or alleging sexual assault and videotaping and whatnot. The Little Rod, all of that could have sped it up, but I will tell you that the federal government doesn't enter a home in the way that they did without them having some sort of substantial reasoning to do so, warrants and whatnot, with backing. It's not something they do on a whim. I'll,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you that. And we don't know what they have. We don't know if they have anything really, but I imagine we'll hear shortly.
Now, how important is the court of public opinion in cases like this? Because as far as I understand, just as a casual person, he's guilty, he's horrible, everything is done. If you're P. Diddy's lawyers, like, what's the damage control here?
Well, the public really needs to understand he's not guilty yet. He's not
Mm-hmm.
guilty as we sit here today. That's the difference between our country and many other countries is
Right?
we go through a process, and he has due process, and he has rights, and he will have a chance maybe to exercise the rights, and maybe no. Charges have not even been brought.
Right.
But what it does is it's very damaging to someone like P. Diddy. It's very damaging to anyone, any person, someone who isn't of note has their home raided like this, and their neighbors see, and their spouse sees, and the rumors go about. It's devastating. It's devastating. Multiply that by 1,000. I imagine that is what someone like P. Diddy might be feeling right now. So it is damaging. I'm not sure how he would recover from something like this. And we know from the Me Too movement that there are people who never recover from allegations like this, even when they're just allegations.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you can only imagine the some experiences at least that Lil Rod has had gone through, and again, if it's a really graphic pleading, there's pictures and videos. I think you said you gave
Yeah.
it reasons for why that would
Yes.
be included. Um, there's also things called like premises liability,
Right.
and he's on yachts and he's in his home and different parties and different things. What does that mean, premises liability?
Well, the owners of certain places, yachts, homes that are lending their yachts or their homes to someone who's committing crimes in them. People who own places, for example, in my home that I own, I have a duty to keep the people that I'm inviting there safe.
Mm,
And if I know that there is a condition on my property, a person on my property that is hurting others, I need to either warn or not have innocent invitees come into that space and be subjected to harm, essentially. So it's a negligence cause of action. It is that the owner of a yacht, a plane, or a home was negligent. It is not an intentional cause of action, but it is serious and it is there. He is alleging a lot of conduct on a yacht. He's alleging conduct, I believe, on a yacht with not just P. Diddy, but his son, P. Diddy's son.
yeah,
And
cousin as
that's
well.
right. That's right. And they're very, very graphic pleadings. I often wonder why people who are in the public eye allow such um and essentially say okay to their attorneys to such public pleadings if they aren't true, right? If they aren't
Hmm.
in graphic pleadings, because they subject themselves, just like Cassie did, from being blackballed from the industry, from never, the old saying, you'll never work in this town again, right?
Yeah, yeah. When
That
you
much.
file that, you have the choice to make it publicly available or not.
Well, it's always public record. So lawsuits are always public record, but
So it's
there
the
are,
choice of what you're putting in.
it's the choice if you call yourself Cassie or Little Rod
Mm,
or John Doe or Jane Doe.
right.
Uh, that
Okay.
is a choice. That is a choice. And of course, it is a choice to even bring it as Cassie and say, I was abused, dot, period, end of story, or to go into the details and the photographs and
Hmm.
all that we have seen. Yeah.
Yeah. So another thought I was having, other people are saying, is this the next Jeffrey Epstein case? And what I mean by that is there are videos, like you said, that P. Diddy has, parties that he's had, not the party you went to. He's had other events and other people. There's a lot of other celebrities implicated. I think Cuba
That's what we're
Gooding
hearing.
Jr.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing, right? That's what we're hearing, that people are now naming names, trying to think of other celebrities. 50 Cent's been very vocal about P. Diddy. Yes, so that's what we're hearing, right? That there's,
Hmm.
is it the next Jeffrey Epstein? I sure hope not.
Well,
But
if yeah, or if it is that we're
yeah,
exposing it and uh, I don't know, avoiding it in the future, because it's like it's yet another list. That's what
yeah,
I'm saying. Another list of people being trafficked
yeah,
and I guess benefiting from this like
yeah.
evil LA Hollywood behavior.
What it was most disturbing about Epstein, and actually the same for Weinstein, what is most disturbing when I hear that, and I hear echoes of it in even P. Diddy's case, is that this type of behavior is being alleged to have occurred over years, over decades. And when you think about Weinstein and the near 30 years of abuse that he inflicted on hundreds of women, and the same for Epstein, why did it take so long for this to happen? And if it's the case here, again, we don't know. But if it's the case here, it's frightening that it was years and years of abuse. Cassie's own lawsuit alleged 10 years.
Hmm.
That was her allegation, 10 years. And you can't go 10 years living the life that she alleged in her lawsuit without people noticing, without people around noticing. And what are those people doing? If there were people noticing, what are those people, doing? So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
it's a crazy time. You choose to live in LA. I don't know, these are the people you surround yourself with. So no,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kidding.
Although
No,
Epstein, I think, was from New York. So
he's New York. That's correct.
New York, and
Now
so was
we
Weinstein.
yep, that's East Coast, West Coast, the
Yeah,
worst rivalry
right.
there is.
Yeah. Who's the
Right.
nastiest guy? Right. Exactly.
Seriously. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, Weinstein West, Epstein East. That's a weird thing.
Nice.
I just thought of that. Okay. Anyway, now another part of your practice is you work on conservatorships, and I believe you've touched upon and spoken about the Wendy Williams conservatorship. Maybe you can give us a quick overview of what happened, maybe an update on how that's been going.
A very unusual situation. So the first time I have ever heard, in all these years of doing it, first time I've ever heard that a financial institution petitioned a judge to put a conservatorship over someone. So something must have happened. We don't know all the details. The court records are sealed, and they aren't always sealed in conservatorships. This is unusual. But Wells Fargo, of course, we know, placed the conservatorship on, and a conservator was appointed that seemed to have proceeded immediately to separate Wendy from her family. And there is a wedge there between the conservator and her family. And watching the documentary and speaking about what happened, very unusual, because we as conservatorship attorneys want the families involved. Usually it's the family that asks for the conservatorship
Yeah.
and become caretakers of the person. Just a very, very sad situation. I know that there are hearings coming up soon this summer. So hopefully we will understand it. And Wendy will have some freedom as well, because from the way that the documentary looked, there was no doubt she was drinking, and that can't have been good for her diagnosis and what she was going through. And really, it's the conservator's job to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. When someone is under a conservatorship, they become a minor, essentially, in the eyes of the law.
Yeah.
You wouldn't let your 12-year-old, your 13-year-old drink vodka the way we saw Wendy drink vodka. So I would have some questions about I really hope the judge in this case brings the conservator in and says, what is going on? Because it's your job. You're getting paid to take care of this person, just like they're a child. And you are not, as far as I could tell, they were not doing their job.
Right. Yeah,
That situation.
absolutely.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
sad.
Very sad. Thank you again for touching on this. It's good to have an expert and people who know what they're talking about to opine on things. So again, it was really great. So Tamar, where can people find you on social media, on websites?
So our Instagram is Arminak Law, APC, and our website is armanaclaw.com. You can find us. You have any questions, feel free to come on in, have a coffee and hang out. Call first. And I'm happy to speak to anyone about their case, their situation, help if I can. Definitely.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you again. Yes.
For having me on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
We'll talk soon. Thank you.